The Amazon Prime truck just stopped in front of my house, so I'm gonna go grab my goodies, you hang tight, and get ready to get wide. Larry here with Southern Exposure. I hope you're all having a great day. Mine just got better because I just received my copy of the Nikkor 20mm f1.8G lens. Why the hell am I still buying f-mount lenses for my Z6, especially one that's over 5 years old? And is it any good? Let's find out. Typical for Nikkor lenses, you get the lens itself, front and rear lens caps, a carrying pouch, and a detachable lens hood. Released in September of 2014, this lens replaced the previous f2.8 version. It features 13 lens elements in 11 groups, with 2 aspherical elements, 2 extra low dispersion elements, and Nikon's nano crystal coating. These help with correcting aberration and minimizing ghosting and flare. As an AFS lens, it uses the silent wave motor, which provides fast and accurate autofocus performance. Speaking of focusing, another feature I like about this lens is that it is a rear focusing system, meaning that only the rear lens group moves during focusing, so nothing on the front of the lens moves at all, which is great if you plan on attaching any filters to the 77mm filter threads on the front. Inside, we have a 7-blade aperture with a maximum of 1.8 and a minimum of f16, and the angle of view on a full-frame camera is 94 degrees. That drops to 70 degrees on a DX body, where this lens is the equivalent of a 30mm f3. Another interesting feature of this lens is its minimum focusing distance, which is 7.9 inches. That's measured from the camera sensor, which means you can push this thing in really tight and take pseudo macro shots with it. The 20mm f1.8G comes in just under $800, but as I'm recording this, it's currently on sale for about 10% off. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to pick one up for yourself. I'm also providing links to all the other lenses discussed in this review. So, why did I choose this lens, and what other options did I consider? Well, my main purpose for this lens was to get more involved in astrophotography and nightscapes featuring the Milky Way. Last summer, I made my first attempt at that using the 24-70 f4. I really had a great experience and got some decent results, but I wanted something just a little wider and a lot faster. I also wanted a good all-around lens for general landscapes. I looked at the Nikkor Z-mount 14-30 f4. This is definitely wider than the 24-70 and has the versatility of being a zoom instead of a prime, but I wouldn't gain any light gathering capability. And at $1,300, it's more than I wanted to spend. The F-mount 14-24 f2.8 gains a full stop of light over the Z-mount f4, but the price goes up even more, so that's out. Next, I looked at the Sigma Art 20mm f1.4. This was really in the sweet spot. 1.4 maximum aperture, great reviews, and the quality of an Art Series lens, and a more attractive price point at just over $700. I almost pulled the trigger on this one, but it had one major drawback. Due to the protruding front element and permanently attached lens hood, using any kind of filters would be a challenge. That was also a factor in ruling out the final contender, the Samyang 14mm f2.8. Build quality is decent. The exterior of the lens is plastic, with a metal mount and a rubber gasket for some protection from dust and water. The large focus ring is easy to use, and like other G-series lenses, it sports a switch on the side to select manual focus or autofocus with manual override. The lens weighs 12.6 ounces or 355 grams, so it's pretty light. Autofocus is fast and accurate, even through the FTZ adapter on my Z6. And if you choose to focus manually, focus peaking works as well. Image quality is excellent. This lens is very sharp and has great contrast. It does have some vignetting, but this is easily corrected in post. There seems to be very little distortion for a lens this wide. I haven't had a chance to test this for myself, but I understand that for astrophotography, there is a good deal of coma in the corners when shot wide open at f1.8. But it seems as though this is corrected by stopping down to 2.8, which is still a full stop faster than the f4 offerings. Now, coma is a type of aberration that can make stars look kind of smeared rather than a crisp point of light. I've taken some shots of a lens test chart at various apertures so we can see how it performs. All right, so here I've got some shots of a lens chart, and I'm actually going to go through this pretty quickly because it really is a pretty simple story to tell. Over here on the left side of the screen, my reference photo, this was shot at f1.8. And so this is wide open. This is what we're going to be comparing everything to. And you can see that this is actually quite sharp in the center. I mean, it's tack sharp, maybe some slight fuzziness. But what we want to look at is the corners. So we're going to go over here and we're going to look at the corner. Over here, this is f1.8. On the right, we have f2.8. And you can see when you compare the two that the f1.8 is a little bit fuzzy in the corners. But by f2.8, it's really coming together nicely. Now let's jump over here. Now we're looking at f4. And we're going to look at that same corner at f4. By the time we get to f4, any kind of fuzziness is really clearing up. Again, it's still, super sharp in the center, but we're really kind of concerned with these corners here. So let's jump on up to f5.6. And at f5.6, you can see we've still got the sharpness in the corners. f8. f8 really seems to be the sweet spot for this lens. We've got sharpness corner to corner, we've got good contrast, we've got good dynamic range. You can see all of these gradations in the color and in the tones. f11 still sharp in the corners, still sharp in the center, and finally we go to f16. And of course at f16, you would expect to see some fall off in the sharpness, but I'm not really seeing much. Maybe a little bit of fuzziness compared to the f8 version, but really not much. So this lens has performed pretty well. Wide open at f1.8, it does have some softness in the corners, but it's really not bad at all. One final item I'll mention is that this lens produces very attractive starburst patterns when stopped down to smaller apertures. I don't usually like including the sun in my images, but I do like the effect in nighttime street scenes, so that'll be nice. Overall, this is a great, super wide-angle lens with a fast aperture. It produces crisp, sharp images and can accommodate filters easily, all at a pretty reasonable price point. It's good for landscapes, nightscapes, astrophotography, and environmental portraits. With its close focusing distance, it can even pretend to be a macro lens. There aren't many downsides to this lens, but here they are from my perspective. It's a prime lens, so you have to be willing to move around a little bit to get your composition right. It does have a fair amount of vignette to it, and can produce some coma in stars at wide open aperture. But with that being said, I can't imagine anyone being disappointed with this lens. But I suggest you take some time to define exactly what you want to use it for. Then have a look at all of the offerings linked in the description below to see which one best fits your shooting style. Now I'm going to put this on my Z6 to go take pictures and have fun doing it. Thanks.